The alarms were still fading when he stepped into the quiet corridor. The station lights flickered overhead, giving everything a strange blue glow. He had just finished repairing a damaged coolant pipe in the lower deck, and all he wanted was a few minutes of silence. But silence rarely meant safety on an alien ship. Especially not this one. He walked slowly, careful with every step. He was the only human on this vessel. A temporary engineer brought in after the last skirmish damaged half the ship's systems. The alien crew tolerated him, but they never trusted humans fully. That was clear from their sharp stares and the way they whispered behind him. Still, he tried to work without drawing attention. Tonight felt different. The air carried a warm mist, and something like perfume hung in the corridor. Not a chemical smell, something natural, soft, almost floral. He paused. The crew quarters were far from this area. No one should be here. His communicator flickered with static, then died. He tapped it twice, but the screen stayed black. That meant one thing. He had entered an area he was not supposed to be in. He considered turning back, but the corridor ahead pulsed with a soft violet glow, like a heartbeat guiding him forward. Something inside him, curiosity or maybe instinct, told him to check it. If a system was failing, he needed to report it. If a pipe was overheating again, the ship could suffer new structural cracks. He followed the light dot. It led him to a tall door carved with symbols he couldn't read. They shimmered like living metal. He reached out and touched the panel beside it. The door didn't open. Instead, it slid halfway, releasing a wave of warm air and faint steam. He knew this was a private chamber. He also knew he should walk away. But a soft sound came from inside, a quiet breath, like someone in pain. That changed everything. He pushed the door gently until it opened enough for him to step through. The room was glowing with pale violet mist. The air was warm, almost like a tropical forest. He took a careful step forward, eyes adjusting to the light. Then he froze. At the center of the room stood the alien princess. He recognized her from the crew's nervous behavior whenever her name was mentioned. She was the daughter of their ruler, powerful, respected, feared. He had only seen her once from afar, walking with guards who never left her side. But now she stood alone, and she was uncovered. The mist rose around her like a shimmering veil. But it did nothing to hide the fact that she was not wearing the ceremonial armor or layered clothing her species usually wore. Her back was partly turned toward him, her skin glowing faintly with the natural patterns her kind carried since birth. They shifted slowly, telling stories he couldn't read. He stopped breathing. He did not want to look. He did not mean to intrude. He opened his mouth to speak, maybe apologize, yet no words came out. She turned. Her eyes shone bright in the mist, reflecting both surprise and something sharper: instinct, authority, maybe even danger. She looked at him as if she were seeing straight through his bones. For a long moment, no one moved. He raised his hand slightly, trying to show he meant no harm. His voice finally broke through the silence, soft and nervous. He tried to say he didn't intend to enter, that he thought someone was hurt, that the door wasn't marked in any language he understood, but she didn't blink. She didn't step back. She simply watched him with a stillness that made the room feel smaller. Then the mist around her flickered as she stepped forward. He felt heat rise in his face, and he kept his eyes lowered. He had heard stories: humans who unintentionally broke cultural rules on alien vessels sometimes faced punishment, sometimes exile, and sometimes nothing at all. It depended on the species. But with royalty, rules were different. When she stopped in front of him, he could feel her presence like a charged field. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm but carried a weight that pressed on his chest. "You saw what is forbidden," she said softly. He tried again to explain, but she lifted a hand and he stopped mid-breath. Something in her tone, in her gaze, told him interruptions were dangerous. "My people," she continued, "punish this offense with death." His heart thudded hard. He stepped back without thinking. But she followed, keeping the distance the same, almost as if she didn't want the space between them to widen. "But I," she added, "decide my own laws inside my private chamber." There was no anger in her voice. No fear, only certainty. She studied him the way a ruler examines someone who has accidentally stepped into a sacred ritual. He swallowed hard. Unsure if speaking would make things worse or better, she tilted her head slightly, as though considering multiple futures at once. Then her eyes softened not with kindness, but with decision. "You will not die," she said. Relief hit him too fast, almost dizzying. He exhaled slowly, trying to calm the tightness in his chest, but her next words stopped that relief instantly. "You will marry me." The room fell silent. Her voice didn't rise, didn't shake, didn't sound unsure. She said it as if it were the most logical outcome in the universe. Her people believed that one who witnessed the sacred markings of their royal blood, patterns only visible without armor, became bound to the lineage forever. He stared at her, stunned, unable to process the sudden shift. He wasn't ready to die, but marriage to an alien princess, one whose culture he barely understood, was a different kind of impossible. She watched his expression carefully, reading every emotion crossing his face. "Those are the choices," she said quietly. "Union or execution." He felt the walls closing in as the meaning settled. He hadn't just walked through the wrong door. He had stepped into a decision that could reshape his entire life. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed outside, the sound of armed guards approaching, and she looked toward the door with a calm, dangerous certainty, as if she already knew how everything would unfold next. The heavy footsteps outside the chamber grew louder, echoing through the hall like a warning. The human's breath tightened again. If the guards entered and saw him standing near the princess, uncovered and unarmored, they would not wait for explanation. They would attack first, speak later. That was how her people protected royal dignity, but the princess didn't look afraid. Instead, she stepped slightly closer to him, the violet mist curling around her like a living shield. Her expression stayed calm, almost unreadable, as if she had already prepared her answer to whatever came next. The door slid open. 4 elite guards stormed in, their armor glowing with red light, their weapons locked instantly on him. He raised his hands without thinking, trying to show surrender. His pulse hammered against his ribs. He knew he couldn't win against them. He couldn't even run. They moved too fast and the room was too small. But before a single soldier stepped forward, the princess lifted her hand. The guards froze. Their bodies stiffened mid-step, but their eyes sharpened with confusion. None dared to move without permission. Even they feared the consequences of crossing royal command. The princess stepped in front of the human. The guards reacted by tightening their grips on their weapons, ready to strike if ordered. "Stand down," she said. Her voice was soft, but authority pulsed through it. The guards lowered their weapons slowly, though their confusion never faded. They looked at each other, unsure why she was shielding the human, especially in such a forbidden moment. One guard spoke cautiously. "Princess, you were not supposed to be." Her eyes cut sharply toward him, and he fell silent instantly. "The human did not harm me," she said. Every guard stiffened. They glanced at the human, then at her, unwilling to question her openly, but unable to hide their disbelief. A human inside the royal steam chamber was an impossibility. A violation with only one punishment. She continued, her tone steady. "He is under my protection. No one will touch him." The guards hesitated. They needed clarity. Their law demanded it. Another guard, voice trembling slightly, asked, "Princess, what claim do you make?" Her answer came without hesitation. "He is my chosen." The words struck the human like a physical force. Chosen. In their culture, that meant something deeper than marriage. It meant she had bound his fate to hers, A decision no one could overturn, not even the Emperor without risking royal dishonor. The guards' reactions were immediate. Their eyes widened. Their postures changed. Their weapons dropped fully to their sides. A chosen partner of the princess was untouchable, but their confusion only grew. A human? Someone outside their species? Someone with no royal blood, no training, no place in their traditions? The lead guard lowered his head. If he is your chosen, then we obey. She nodded once. Then she turned slightly toward the human, and for the first time, he saw something gentle in her eyes. Not kindness, something more complicated. Something like acceptance of a path she had already chosen. "Return to your quarters," she said to the guards. "This moment is private." They bowed and left the chamber, letting the door seal behind them. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. He stood frozen, struggling to breathe normally again. She watched him closely, aware of the storm she had just created around his life. "You saved me," he whispered, the words almost stuck in his throat. "I did not save you," she replied calmly. "I made a decision." Her voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. She spoke like someone who understood her own power deeply and carried it without apology. He looked at the floor, then back at her, trying to make sense of everything. "Why me?" She studied him for a long moment, her gaze slow and thoughtful. "You entered my chamber," she said softly. "You witnessed my true markings." "I didn't mean to. I know." Her tone didn't change, but the way she looked at him softened slightly. "Your heart reacted before your mind. You came because you sensed someone might be in danger." He blinked, surprised she had noticed something so small. "My people value intent," she continued. "And your intent was not dishonor, it was concern." He swallowed hard, unsure what to say. He didn't feel brave. He just reacted. But her species valued instinct, loyalty, and emotional truth, qualities humans sometimes hid, but she seemed to read with ease. She stepped past him, retrieving a ceremonial cloth and wrapping it around her shoulders. The mist faded slowly with her movements, giving the room a more grounded, calmer feel. "When you looked at me," she said, "you looked away." He felt heat rise in his face. "Because I wanted to respect you." "Most would not," she replied. "Your people are curious, reckless, hungry for things they do not understand." He couldn't argue that, but you showed restraint, and restraint is strength. She moved closer again, her presence warm but intimidating. He could feel the energy she carried, the unique pulse of her royal bloodline. "My choosing," she said, "is not only because of what you saw. It is because of who you were in the moment you saw it." His legs felt unsteady. This was too much. Too fast, too heavy for him to understand clearly. "I don't know if I can accept something like this," he admitted quietly. "I don't know your customs. I don't even know if your people will ever accept me." "They will learn," she said with calm certainty. "And if they do not, they will obey." He stared at her, shocked by the simple strength of her words. She wasn't threatening him, she was stating a fact of her world. "I understand that you are overwhelmed," she added. "But you will have time to learn. Time to decide." He frowned slightly. "But you gave me only two choices." Her eyes held his for a long, steady moment. "You still have them," she said. "I only hope you choose the one that lets you live." Before he could respond, the ship trembled, a deep vibration running through the walls. She looked toward the ceiling, sensing something he couldn't. Her calm expression faded into focus and alertness. "We are no longer alone," she said. "A hostile vessel approaches." The moment of choice was gone. A new danger had arrived. The walls of the chamber vibrated again, stronger this time, and loose droplets of violet steam rolled across the floor. The human grabbed the edge of a railing to steady himself. The princess didn't flinch. She stood tall, listening carefully. Her head tilted upward, as if she could hear something beyond normal sound. Another tremor passed through the ship, this one sharper, like a distant strike. He looked at her, trying to understand. "What's happening?" She turned toward him with a calm but serious expression. "A hostile vessel has locked onto our ship. Their energy signature is from the Vorrin Empire." He had heard the name whispered among the crew in fearful tones. The Vorrin were ruthless and efficient, a military force known for destroying anything that stood in their way. If they were coming here, it wasn't by mistake. "Why would they attack now?" he asked. "Because they learned something," she said quietly. "Something about me. Something about you." His stomach dropped. "Me? Yes." She moved toward a control panel near the wall and pressed her palm against a glowing symbol. The mist in the room faded completely as the chamber sealed its vents. "The Vorrin are old enemies of my family. If they learned I have chosen someone, especially someone from another species, they would try to use it." His mind raced. "Use it how?" Her eyes met his. "By taking you." He froze. The idea felt unreal. For most of his life, he had been invisible, working in corners of human space no one cared about. Now he was suddenly important enough to be hunted. The thought tightened his chest. Her tone softened slightly. "They would not seek you because of who you are. They would seek you because of what you mean to me." He swallowed, unsure how to respond to something so heavy and personal. Another tremor shook the floor, and a distant alarm finally activated somewhere in the ship. Footsteps echoed outside the corridor, crew moving quickly, preparing for a fight. The princess took a step closer to him. "You must stay near me at all times. Do not run. Do not separate. The Vorrin will assume you are weak, but you are not. You must stay steady." "I'm trying," he said, voice shaking slightly. "I know." Her calm steadiness was strange comfort. She touched a panel on the wall, and a protective layer of armor began forming around her shoulders. It wasn't heavy metal, but smooth, shimmering plates that grew and locked gently into place like living scales. When the armor reached her arms, she spoke again. "You asked before why I chose you." Her voice was low but clear. "There was another reason." He felt his breath catch. She rarely shared anything about herself. Hearing her speak so openly now made him pay attention in a different way. She continued, "My people sense truth. We see intentions the way others see shadows. When you stepped inside this chamber, your fear was real, but it was not fear for yourself. You feared for me." He blinked. "But I didn't even know it was you. That makes your action even more pure. You moved without knowing who you were risking your life for." She paused. "That is rare." He didn't know what to say, so he remained silent, unsure if gratitude, confusion, or fear should fill his mind. The princess touched a symbol on her armor, and it projected a small image of the enemy ship outside. The Vorrin vessel was enormous, dark and sharp-edged, surrounded by blue fire as its engines charged for impact. "They intend to board," she said. He felt the air leave his lungs. "What do they want from you?" "Power," she said. "They believe capturing me would weaken my father's empire." Her eyes hardened. "But they do not know me." A loud crash shook the entire ship. He stumbled, and she caught his arm without hesitation. Her grip was firm and warm, steadying him instantly. She didn't let go. "You must stay with me," she repeated. "The Vorrin will try to separate us. They will claim you are unworthy. They will try to make you doubt yourself." He nodded slowly, still catching his balance. "Why would they care what I think?" "Because your doubt weakens my claim," she said. "If you believe you are unworthy, they will believe it too. And they will use it." The ship shook again, followed by a harsh metallic groan from the hull. The princess guided him toward the door, her movements smooth, confident, controlled. When the door opened, the corridor outside was chaotic. Crew members rushed past with weapons and energy shields. The lights flickered red as emergency systems activated. The guards from before approached them immediately, taking defensive positions around the princess. One guard bowed quickly. "Princess, the Vorrin breach team is preparing to cut through the starboard entrance." She nodded. "Hold them off as long as you can." The guard hesitated. "And the human? He stays with me." The guard didn't question the order. Instead, he turned and continued directing soldiers to defensive positions. As the princess led the human through the ship, he noticed how crew members stared at him differently now. Not with suspicion, not with annoyance, but with something like shocked recognition. They knew what her declaration meant. They knew he was no longer just a worker. He was tied to the royal line, and because of that, the Vorrin wanted him. They entered a transport lift that vibrated as another tremor rocked the ship. The princess touched a control, and the lift began to rise. He exhaled sharply. "I don't know how to fight an enemy like the Vorrin." "You are not asked to fight them," she said. "You are asked to survive." The lift opened into the command deck, where guards formed a circle around a shimmering projection of the ship. Sections flashed red marks of areas already damaged. The princess stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Prepare defensive barriers. Bring the human to my side." The crew obeyed instantly. He stood next to her, heart pounding, feeling the weight of eyes watching him. The Vorrin ship tightened its grip around theirs, preparing to breach. A heavy silence fell over the command deck as the enemy vessel locked onto their hull. The princess looked at him, her eyes steady and unafraid. "When they come," she said softly, "remember this. You are not alone. You are chosen, and because of that, they will fear you more than you fear them." Before he could fully understand her meaning, the sound of metal tearing echoed through the ship. The Vorrin had boarded. The sound of metal ripping open was unlike anything he had ever heard. It wasn't a normal explosion. It was the clean, sharp tearing of reinforced hull plates being forced apart. The entire shivered under the impact. The command deck lights flickered and dimmed, leaving only the pale glow of emergency lamps. Guards rushed to position. The princess stepped forward with calm authority, her armor shining with faint energy lines. The human felt his legs tremble, but he stayed beside her. She had told him not to leave her side, and he trusted her more than he trusted his own instincts at that moment. A harsh, metallic hiss echoed through the corridor leading to the breach. Then heavy footsteps approached, slow, deliberate, predatory. The Vorrin soldiers appeared first, tall and armored in dark plates with bright blue slashes across their helmets. They moved in formation, silent and synchronized like machines. Behind them walked their commander. He was taller than the others, his armor carved with symbols of rank. His steps were confident, his posture relaxed, as if he already believed the battle was won. His gaze swept over the guards, dismissing them with little interest. Then his eyes settled on the princess. And then they moved to the human. A cold smile touched his lips. "So it is true," the commander said, his voice deep and unnervingly calm. "The royal daughter has chosen a human." The princess stood firm. "You do not belong here. Leave." The commander laughed softly. "You expect me to walk away from the greatest advantage in the history of your empire? Your choosing has already shaken your people. Imagine what will happen when you lose him." The human felt the weight of the words. The Vorrin didn't care about him personally. They cared about the power shift his loss would cause. They wanted to break her spirit, her lineage, her political strength. The commander raised a hand, and his soldiers took formation. "Hand him over, princess. Spare your crew, your ship, and yourself." "No," she said simply. Her refusal cut through the air like a blade. A sudden blast of blue energy shot toward her. But she raised her arm, and a shimmering shield exploded from her armor, blocking the strike. The deck shook from the impact. Guards shifted forward, prepared to defend her with their lives. The commander chuckled. "You protect him well. But can he protect you?" The human felt small under the pressure of so many eyes. He wasn't trained for battle. He wasn't a warrior. He had no armor, no weapon, nothing to defend her with. But he knew one truth. Running wasn't an option. She had risked everything to save him. He stepped half a step closer to her. The Vorrin commander noticed instantly. "Look at him," he said to his soldiers. "Fragile, terrified, a creature of instinct. He is nothing." The princess's eyes hardened. "He is mine." The commander tilted his head. "Then watch him fall." He raised his arm to signal the attack, and a blast of energy tore past the human's face, close enough to burn the air beside his cheek. Instinct made him stumble backward, but the princess caught his arm, pulling him safely behind her. Her grip was firm, almost protective. The guards opened fire. The Vorrin soldiers charged. The command deck erupted into chaos. Blue and red energy bursts collided mid-air. Shields flared. Alarms screamed. The floor vibrated as soldiers clashed. The human stayed behind the princess, but every sense in his body demanded he move. Act, survive. Then he noticed something the others didn't. The Vorrin commander wasn't fighting. He was moving to flank them silently, slipping through the chaos with deadly precision. His path was clear. He was heading straight for the princess. "Behind you." The human shouted without thinking. She spun just as the commander lunged. His blade sliced through the air where her neck had been a moment before. She blocked with her arm, sparks bursting from her armor. He struck again, faster, stronger, aiming for weak points. The human watched the patterns, how the commander stepped, how he turned his wrist, how his movements predicted the next angle of attack. Humans were good at something many species underestimated: reading body language. Intuition, instinctive prediction. The princess moved with grace. But the commander was ruthless. Another strike slipped through her defense, grazing her arm. Her armor darkened where the blade touched it. The human acted without thinking. He grabbed a fallen, guard's broken shield emitter from the floor. It flickered weakly, but still held a faint pulse. He rushed toward the commander, who barely glanced at him. Assuming a human wasn't a threat, that assumption saved her life. The human slammed the shield emitter into the commander's weapon arm. The burst of energy made the alien stumble, his attack breaking rhythm. The princess seized the opening, striking with a force that cracked his armor. The commander fell to one knee. He looked up at the human with disbelief and fury. "You dare!" The princess stepped between them. "He is under my protection, and he is stronger than you think." The commander roared and lunged again, but this time she was faster. She twisted his blade aside, drove her palm into his chest, and activated a burst of energy that sent him crashing to the floor. His armor systems failed, flickering with red sparks. Her guards quickly surrounded him. The commander lay still, defeated, breathing heavily. The princess turned toward the human. For the first time since he met her, she looked shaken, not by danger, but by something deeper. Something like realization. "You risked your life," she said softly. He wiped sweat from his forehead, still catching his breath. "You saved mine first." "You did more than act," she said. "You chose." He didn't know how to respond. His heart was still racing, his hands trembling slightly, but he met her gaze steadily. The ship began stabilizing as the Vorrin retreated, dragging their injured commander back toward their breach point. The crew sealed the hull and reactivated internal shields. Silence finally returned. The princess stepped close, her armor dimming as its energy cooled. "The choice I gave you still remains," she said gently. "Union, or your freedom." He looked at her, truly looked, and saw not just a ruler, not just a warrior, but someone who had risked everything to protect him. Someone who saw value in him even when he doubted himself. He took a slow breath. "I choose life," he said softly. "And if life means staying with you, then yes, I choose that." Her eyes softened, not with victory, but with something like relief. Something human, even though she wasn't. She touched his hand lightly, a gesture from her culture that symbolized acceptance. "Then from this moment," she said, "your path is tied to mine." The crew bowed quietly. The lights brightened. The danger passed. And for the first time since he accidentally opened the wrong door, he did not feel afraid. He felt chosen, and he chose her back.